Verte. Prologue, Echoes of a Vanished Glory.
Greetings, curious listeners. I am Jebediah Jeb Barlays, and I ask you, do you truly believe our modern age represents the pinnacle of mortal advancement? Look around at our steam-powered engines, the rudimentary art of gunpowder, and the fledgling promise of flight. These achievements, however, are but mere footnotes in the annals of history when compared to the wonders of the lost Shori Empire. The Shori were a civilization whose very essence exuded an almost divine arrogance, a people who believed themselves on par with the gods they once called allies. Their society was a realm where magic and science merged in a dazzling display of ingenuity, fueling innovations that defied the constraints of mortal limitations. It was said that the Shori, through their audacious might, helped banish the monstrous Rovagug from the realms, achieving feats that left lesser civilizations in awe and trepidation. They not only defeated multiple spawn of that ancient terror, but did so with a confidence that bordered on the celestial. In the grand tapestry of their achievements, the Shori negotiated treaties with beings from other planes, proving that their intellect and power could command respect across dimensions. Their scholars, mages, and inventors pushed the boundaries of both arcane lore and scientific discovery, reaching heights that most societies could only liken to the work of deities. Temples and academies were interwoven with laboratories and forges, a harmonious blend of the sacred and the empirical, each structure resonating with a divine spark that celebrated their self-perceived grandeur. Yet, the Shori were not simply masters of magic and science. Their society was built upon a distinctly stratified ethos. Unlike the modern concept of racism, which pits one race against another in baseless conflict, the Shori cultivated a rigid hierarchy defined by layers of value and privilege. Citizenship was the ultimate measure of worth, and those who did not earn this exalted status were inevitably marginalized and undervalued. Who is to say if this was a better way of organizing society? But it was undeniably the Shori way, a system that favored a select few while erecting formidable barriers to entry for outsiders. Their internal policies and interactions with those from beyond their borders were driven by this unyielding belief in inherent superiority, a mindset that selectively integrated others based on stringent, almost sacrosanct criteria. This hierarchical structure was not merely administrative, it was woven into the very identity of the Shori. Their cultural narrative celebrated excellence and noble birth, while those who fell short were consigned to the lower rungs of society. This created a delicate balance of order and exclusion, one that sustained the empire's lofty ambitions and its seemingly divine mandate. Yet, this same inflexibility and internal segregation would, in time, sow seeds of discord that contributed to the empire's ultimate vulnerability. The Shori mindset was not merely a matter of policy, it was the very soul of their civilization. Deeply rooted in a strong sense of superiority and ethnocentrism, they viewed their empire as the pinnacle of civilization. Every institution, every decree, and every cultural nuance was imbued with a belief in their own exceptionalism. This conviction permeated their societal structure, dictating not only how they governed themselves, but also how they regarded those beyond their borders. In the eyes of the Shori, their lineage and legacy were proof of their right to rule, and nothing less than perfection was acceptable within their ranks. Yet the Shori Empire was paradoxically inclusive in a most exacting way. While they believed themselves superior, they were not entirely closed off to the outside world. Individuals from foreign lands could, in theory, join their exalted society. However, the path to citizenship was paved with rigorous trials, tests that measured physical prowess, mental resilience, intellectual acuity, spiritual alignment, and magical mastery. Only those who could meet these lofty standards were welcomed as full members of the Shori, their worth confirmed through a crucible of arduous challenges. Those who fell short were not merely excluded, they were held in disdain, regarded as unworthy of the empire's luminous heritage. For the Shori, the measure of a person's value was inseparable from their citizenship. Non-citizens, regardless of any inherent merit or contribution, were seen as inherently inferior. Their worth was appraised solely on their economic and societal impact, and even grave offenses committed against them were often trivialized. When crimes against non-citizens did occur, they were judged not by moral or judicial standards, but by the econ judge, a role that evaluated the infraction only in terms of its economic ramifications. This stark calculus underscored a chilling truth. In Shori society, non-citizens were valued little more than commodities, their rights and humanity reduced to mere figures in an economic ledger. In an ironic twist, even the most disenfranchised among the Shori could find a measure of protection if they held citizenship, even if they were bound in servitude. Slaves who retained their Shori citizenship were accorded more rights and a greater degree of personal dignity than free non-citizens. This paradox highlights the empire's unyielding fixation on citizenship as the supreme marker of one's worth and status. It was not one's birth, race, or even personal achievements that mattered most, but the formal recognition as a member of the exalted Shori. Thus, every facet of life, be it the promise of opportunity or the inevitability of exclusion, was governed by a rigid, uncompromising hierarchy that celebrated the lofty ideals of superiority, while mercilessly marginalizing those who failed to measure up. What makes the mystery of the Shori all the more tantalizing is that, unlike the Thassalon Empire, the Dwarven Empire of Tartargoth, or even the Gistka Imperium, ancient kingdoms whose ruins we have come to study and revere, the Shori remain shrouded in enigma. Though these lost empires are formidable in their own right, they are but relics of a bygone era, archaic in comparison to the dazzling, almost otherworldly magnificence of the Shori. Their chronicles are sparse, their monuments scattered to the winds of time, and the few surviving texts hint at a society that reached heights in magic and science that mortals dare only whisper about. In their arrogance, the Shori forged a legacy so sublime and terrifyingly advanced that even the wisest of scholars find themselves at a loss to explain it. Tonight, I invite you to step back through the mists of time with me, to explore the saga of a people who soared as high as the gods and dared to defy destiny itself. As we journey into the heart of their empire, a realm of splendor, hubris, and ultimately sorrow, may you come to understand that the forgotten mystery of the Shori is not merely a chapter of ancient history, but a timeless parable of ambition, divine arrogance, and the inevitable fall that follows when mortals dare to play at being gods. I stand before you to recount a tale so far-fetched it seems to border on myth, a story in which the boundless greed and pride of the Shori Empire set in motion the events that would ultimately bring about its ruin. At the heart of this saga lies a singular, fateful moment, a moment when hubris and desperation converged, compelling individuals to reach for power beyond their rightful grasp. In the high towers of the Shori, where ambition was celebrated and arrogance was law, the seeds of downfall were sown not by a grand conspiracy or the machinations of foreign foes, but by the unchecked desire for personal salvation and supremacy. It all began with one man, my ancestor, Damus Barlays, whose selfish yearning to correct a single, seemingly inconsequential mistake ignited a chain reaction that would reverberate through the ages. Damus, driven by pride and blinded by his own ambition, sought to rewrite fate at any cost. His actions, though born out of a desire to mend a personal failing, unleashed a tumult of events that undermined the very foundation of the Shori's exalted society. In his quest for redemption, he not only upset the delicate balance of power within the empire, but also set in motion a cascade of greed, betrayal, and hubris that would lead to the irreversible decline of a civilization that once dared to stand with the gods.
Sensible Hysteria. Book 1. Caper la Verte. Chapter 1. Shadows and Echoes.
A portly figure emerges from the dim haze, a man whose restless energy is palpable in every deliberate gesture. His gloved fingers move in measured circles over chipped glasses, as if each wipe were an effort to scrub away the residue of past transgressions. His long, wavy red hair cascades around him, catching slivers of the muted light, while a wild mustache seems intent on defying gravity, its unruly tendrils complementing a daring soul patch that adds an extra flourish to his presence. He pauses momentarily, drumming his fingers on the scarred wooden counter, his eyes reflecting a potent mix of determination and regret. In that quiet moment of anticipation, the worn interior of the broken wing, its peeling wallpaper, creaking floorboards, and flickering neon hints, fades into the background, leaving only the man and the weight of his promise. This is Damas Barley's. Damas's gloved hands never cease their careful dance over the chipped glasses, each polished surface a silent testament to his inner turmoil. The ritual of cleaning becomes an act of preparation, not only for the job ahead, but for the reckoning with the past he's long tried to forget. His eyes, deep with unspoken regrets and fierce resolve, flicker towards the dim corner where his trusted confidant waits. Before any words are exchanged, a half-orc leans against the counter, his very presence a rugged counterpoint to Damas's flamboyant energy. Bald as a polished stone, his head reflects the low amber glow of the broken wing. A rough patch of white stubble clings beneath his chin, and a single cracked tusk protrudes from his lower lip, a permanent reminder of battles fought and scars earned. This steady, unflappable figure is known as Grom. His eyes, weary yet piercing, silently acknowledge the risks that both men have long carried like an invisible burden. Damas breaks the silence with a low, thoughtful murmur.
Grom, you know as well as I do, this job might just be the one that seals our fate.
His voice trembles ever so slightly between determination and uncertainty. Grom shifts his weight, his deep, gravelly tone emerging as he replies,
I, Damas. Every step we take in this world is a gamble, but sometimes it's a risk we must take to set the past right, even if it burns us along the way.
In that quiet exchange, amid the peeling wallpaper and the soft hum of the broken wing, the gravity of the plan hangs heavily in the air, a pact between two souls on the precipice of redemption and ruin. Damas's voice was low and resolute as he continued his careful cleaning, his gaze fixed on the scarred wood of the counter.
Grom, you know I wouldn't risk anyone I care about for this job, not even you. I need to be certain that every soul we bring along is solid, dependable. I can't afford a misstep.
Grom's weathered eyes narrowed slightly, and his gravelly tone carried a bitter edge. He shifted his weight, the dim light catching the rough lines of his face and the solitary cracked tusk as he replied,
I, Damas. I hear you, but mark my words. If the folks you're meeting aren't as sound as you claim, I'll have no choice but to disregard your wishes. I'm not going to stand by and risk my neck for a gamble that's bound to burn us all.
In the quiet that followed, the tension between duty and loyalty filled the space. A fragile balance where every word, every pause, held the weight of past regrets and future uncertainties. Without warning, the creaking of the old door shatters the quiet tension. A fetchling bursts into the room, a kaleidoscope of color and sound. Clad in vivid, mismatched fabrics that clash brilliantly with his stark, drained complexion, the man strides in with a charismatic swagger. His accent, undeniably foreign and rich with exotic inflections, cuts through the murmurs of the broken wing as he bellows,
A drink! Bring me a mango mirage!
His luminous, pupilless eyes, glowing an intense greenish yellow, sweep the room before settling on Damas. With a theatrical flourish, he proclaims,
Are you the man with the job?
Before Damas can reply, another presence makes itself known. A hairless man, his skin a canvas of intricate tattoos, one of which boldly mimics a falcon's outstretched wings on his cheek, steps into the dim light. His attire is deliberate. A blue guy cinched with a black sash, his hands wrapped in cloth as if perpetually ready for a brawl. This quieter figure, whose measured steps contrast sharply with the fetchling's exuberance, interjects with a calm, steady tone.
I'm sorry for the abrupt entrance,
He says, his voice low and measured.
but allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ang Blackthorn, and the flamboyant figure next to me is Bran Nightshade.
In that charged moment, the murmurs and clinks of the broken wing fall into a hushed expectancy. Damas's careful polishing halts, and even Grom's steady gaze shifts towards the newcomers, as the promise of a risky venture hangs palpably in the air. Bran Nightshade's eyes flicker disdain as he surveys the dim interior, and with a theatrical scoff, he declares,
This service is horrid. I came here for a proper drink and to hear the details of this job.
His voice echoes off the stained walls, punctuating the tension in the room. Damas flashes a roguish, almost hypnotic smile as he sets a glass down with deliberate flair.
Now.
He purrs in that snake oil salesman tone, his hands never pausing in their rhythmic dance over the counter.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, we're still waiting on one more soul to join our little gathering. A perfect blend of talent, if I do say so myself.
Young Blackthorn, standing slightly apart with his steady gaze, arches an eyebrow at Bran's outburst.
As I said,
He adds in a measured tone, laced with mild annoyance.
we're here for the job. Let's not forget that.
Damas, ever the charmer, winks as he begins to prepare a new drink behind the bar, a concoction as enigmatic as his promises, and his voice softens to a persuasive murmur.
A word to the wise. The perfect moment demands the perfect company. And tonight, dear friends, we're on the brink of something unforgettable.
The air crackles with anticipation, the broken wing's worn elegance serving as the backdrop for promises and peril, as Damas's words weave a spell that makes even the sharp-tongued Bran pause, awaiting the arrival of the final piece to their risky puzzle. A figure slips in quietly, a shadow that seems to absorb the flickering light of the broken wing. At first glance, he appears as just another patron, but a closer look reveals a subtle artistry in his disguise. His layered clothing, meticulously arranged to conceal every detail, and the skillful makeup on his face that shifts his features ever so slightly. The overall effect is not one of mere anonymity, but of a deliberate, crafted illusion. Ong narrows his eyes, a wry smile tugging at his lips as he studies the newcomer's careful presentation.
That's got to be Koga.
He remarks dryly, his tone edged with both respect and mild amusement.
No ordinary man could pull off a disguise with such precision.
Damas, his gaze flickering between the silent newcomer and Grom, who moves swiftly to lock the door, senses the gravity of the moment. With a charismatic, almost hypnotic smile that belies the tension, Damas addresses the trio.
Gentlemen, now that the final piece has graced our stage, are you ready to begin?
In that charged moment, the evidence of Koga's unmistakable identity adds a new layer of anticipation to the already electric air of the broken wing. A promise that the night will unfold into something both dangerous and unforgettable. Damas's eyes glitter with a dangerous enthusiasm as he leans forward, his voice a mix of persuasion and gravitas.
Gentlemen, here's the deal.
He begins, his tone smooth as silk, yet edged with the promise of peril.
This is a three-part job, each phase building on the success of the last. Now let me lay out the first step for you.
He pauses, ensuring that every ear in the room is tuned to his words, and continues.
We're going after a riverboat casino, a floating palace of risk and opulence, run by none other than my own sister, Herod Barley's, but trust me when I say we're not after the money. No, what we seek are her personal contracts, documents of power and influence, locked away with her like treasures. These contracts hold secrets and sway far more valuable than gold.
Damas allows the weight of his words to settle, his gaze flickering from one hardened face to the next, gauging their resolve.
Succeed in this heist, and the next two parts of the job will be revealed to you. But for now, I need to know, are you ready to take this risk, to face the storm that follows when family and fate collide?
A charged silence fills the broken wing as his challenge hangs in the air, each man weighing the cost of loyalty against the lure of redemption. Damas's words hang in the air as the heavy implications of the heist settle over the trio. Koga's eyes, still hidden beneath layers of artful disguise, narrow with a hint of amusement and caution.
So, you expect us to risk our lives for contracts?
He asks, his voice low and measured.
Contracts that belong to a Barley's? What's in it for us? Pay, risks, the whole damn package.
Young Blackthorn folds his arms, his gaze sharp.
Robbing a Barley's isn't just another heist, Damas. These people, they're not ordinary marks. They're among the most powerful in the city. They're known to make soul contracts with those foolish enough to cross them. How do you expect us to pull this off without ending up in eternal damnation?
Bran Nightshade's tone is equally biting as he adds,
I didn't come here to dance around risks. Tell us, what's the payout? And if we're to face off against someone who deals in souls, isn't that a risk too great for mere mortals?
A moment of charged silence follows, the weight of their questions pressing in like the dim light of the broken wing. Damas's smile twists into a confident, almost predatory grin as he leans forward, his eyes glinting with promise.
Ah, my friend,
He begins smoothly, his voice a silky reassurance that cuts through the tension.
yes, robbing a Barley's, especially one as formidable as my sister, will be dangerous. There's no denying that. But remember, no great reward comes without great risk.
He continues, voice growing more persuasive.
At the end of this job, you won't just be pocketing a few coins. I'm talking about more money than you've ever dreamed of, enough to set you up for life. We're not after cash merely for its own sake. We're after the power these contracts hold, the leverage that comes with them. Think of it as a ticket to a realm of influence and freedom, far beyond the petty scuffles you're used to.
Damas's words weave a tantalizing promise through the thick air of the bar.
Are you willing to face a foe whose very name is feared? If you can master this challenge, the city will be yours in more ways than one. So what do you say? Ready to risk it all for a reward beyond your wildest dreams?
The question hangs, electric and dangerous, as the trio weighs the allure of unimaginable wealth against the threat of a soul-bound retribution.
Sensible Hysteria. Book 1, Caper la Verte. Chapter 2, Foul Play at the Hen House.
Under a brooding twilight, the three figures, Ang Blackthorn, Bran Nightshade, and Koga, 1,000 Faces, stepped confidently onto the gangplank, their crisp military uniforms lending an air of authority and camouflage to their true intentions. The ship, a sprawling, floating palace bristling with modern opulence and classic naval charm, loomed before them. Its polished brass railings and intricate carvings on the hull caught the fading light, hinting at secrets and storied pasts hidden within its decks. As they crossed onto the vessel, the ambiance shifted dramatically. The main deck was abuzz with the refined murmurs of an elite gathering. Every guest exuded an unmistakable air of wealth. Rich merchants, adorned in tailored suits and glittering accessories, mingled with nobles draped in luxurious fabrics and crowned with the subtle regalia of their stations. Crystal chandeliers suspended from the ceiling of the grand salon reflected the guests' sparkling attire, while discreet clusters of conversation and laughter evoked both confidence and careful calculation. The meticulous details of the ship's interior, velvet-lined corridors, gilded mirrors, and intricate mosaics, spoke of a world where extravagance met calculated risk. In that charged moment, As the trio's concealed identities blended seamlessly into the procession of the rich and influential, the stage was set for an audacious infiltration. Every step they took was a dance on the edge of danger, perfectly choreographed against the backdrop of this lavish floating kingdom. Bran tugged at his collar and grumbled,
I swear, this uniform is tighter than a miser's grip on his gold, and why, oh why, am I saddled with the lower fake rank? Seems like Kochka here gets all the fanciness.
Koga's disguised face flared with indignant amusement as he retorted,
Lower fake rank. Listen, my friend, these disguises are crafted with the finesse of a master artisan. Every detail is meant to deceive. You should be grateful that I'm lending you my expertise, even if you can't see the artistry through your constricted sleeve.
Aang, leaning casually against a polished brass railing, chuckled and added,
Honestly, I love this. It's like dressing up for a school play, except our audience is a bunch of rich merchants and nobles, and the stakes are infinitely higher.
Before Koga could retort to Aang's playful remark, a well-dressed young woman stepped forward. Adorned in gaudy, shimmering jewelry that practically screamed wealth, she tilted her head in disapproval as she addressed them.
Excuse me,
She said, her tone both haughty and curious.
but why on earth have 3 military men boarded the hen house?
Koga shot an exasperated look at Aang before replying,
I've had a long day, truly a day for the record books. I nearly met my end thanks to the abysmal work of my own subordinates.
His tone was low and rough, a mix of fatigue and irritation, as he glanced pointedly at Aang.
I'm here on the hen house just to blow off some steam, to escape the chaos back on shore.
Before Koga could add another word, Bran chimed in abruptly with a mischievous smirk.
And if that weren't enough, dear merchant lady, his house burned down too.
Koga's disguised face twisted into a glare so sharp it could cut through steel, clearly unimpressed by the interruption.
Yes, I nearly died, and my house burnt down. What a crazy and believable day I have had. Thank you so much for helping Brenda.
The rich merchant's daughter raised her eyebrows at this cascade of revelations, caught between amusement and disbelief. The air on the deck thickened with tension and humor, as Koga's simmering annoyance clashed with Bran's cheeky banter, all under the surreal glow of the floating casino's opulence.
Name's Arabella.
The merchant woman declared with a measured tone, her eyes glinting in the low light. Despite her poised exterior, there was a subtle unease whenever Aang leaned in with his roguish smile. Aang attempted a charming remark.
Arabella, your presence rivals the splendor of this fine vessel. Perhaps you'll allow me the pleasure of a dance later.
Arabella, not suspecting their true identities, but clearly put off by Aang's overly familiar approach, arched an eyebrow and replied coolly,
I think I'll pass on dancing with what appears to be a pompous military man tonight.
Arabella's cool dismissal left the air thick with unspoken tension, and Bran couldn't help but let out a hearty chuckle. Leaning in, he patted Aang on the back with a playful, knowing grin.
Tough break, mate.
He teased, the sound of his laughter mingling with the soft hum of the casino room below. Despite the jab, the camaraderie between them shone through, even as Aang's cheeks flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and amusement. With a brief exchange that left Arabella slightly creeped out by Aang's demeanor, the trio, Koga, Bran, and Aang, excused themselves and made their way below deck. They descended a narrow staircase that creaked underfoot, emerging into a vast casino room that defied expectations. The space was alive with every imaginable game, glittering card tables, roulette wheels frozen in mid-spin, and rows of slot machines that tinkled their mechanical chimes in the background. At the center of this lavish arena stood a massive vertical wheel shrouded in a heavy, dark tarp, a mysterious centerpiece that promised secrets and the thrill of the unknown. The opulent yet surreal setting set the stage for the unfolding of their audacious plan amid high stakes, deception, and clandestine revelry. At each gambling table stood an identical woman, clad in a striking ensemble of purple and green. Her long white hair spilled elegantly from beneath a matching top hat, and a perfectly coordinated mask obscured half her face. Their movements were oddly mechanical, each one mimicking the other with an eerie precision. The trio exchanged curious glances, noting the uncanny uniformity that made the scene feel more like a staged performance than a genuine casino experience. Their intrigue deepened when they noticed a large, ornate poster hanging on a nearby wall. Bold letters proclaimed that tonight's festivities were sponsored by Twaddle and Consternation. The words, as if echoing the absurdity of their own misadventures, prompted a few wry remarks from the group. Before they could dwell on the poster for long, a voice interrupted their musings. A man with vibrant green hair stepped out from seemingly nowhere. Dressed in a three-piece suit that blended seamlessly with the purple and green theme, he exuded a jovial air. With a wide smile and a light-hearted tone, he asked,
"Are you all enjoying your time?"
A sly grin silently crept on the man's face as they paused with shock.
"Surprised to see me in the rear?"
The man quipped, his voice dripping with playful mischief. Brand whirled around, startled yet amused.
I was just thinking you could sneak up on me like a shadow. Guess you took that literally. Mr. Twaddle, I assume?
Mr. Twaddle laughed softly.
"In this world, dear lamb, every move is a performance. And what's a show without a dramatic entrance?"
Brand shook his head, still grinning.
Well, I suppose that makes you the master of entrances. Just don't expect me to applaud every time.
As Mr. Twaddle lingered with a mischievous glint in his eye, Brand couldn't help but lean in, matching the man's peculiar energy with a crooked smile and a playful scoff. Their banter grew increasingly eccentric, as if each was daring the other to delve deeper into absurdity. With a theatrical flourish, Mr. Twaddle produced from the folds of his impeccably tailored suit a small, ornate box. He opened it to reveal a living clown doll, its painted features perpetually frozen in a manic grin, and its eyes twinkling with an unsettling, almost knowing spark.
"To make tonight more entertaining.
Mr. Twaddle intoned in a conspiratorial whisper.
But be careful what you feed it."
His warning hung in the air like a riddle, adding another layer of enigma to the already surreal scene. Brand's laugh mingled with a raised eyebrow, and though his tone was laced with amusement, there was a hint of curiosity, and perhaps wariness, in his voice. Koga cradled the living clown doll in his hands, turning it slowly as if it were an intricate puzzle waiting to be solved. His disguised face betraying a rare spark of genuine interest, a silent calculation of its inner workings, the mechanism behind its uncanny mimicry. Meanwhile, Aang drifted away from the commotion, his eyes scanning the lavish casino room with a predatory glint. He was on the prowl, convinced that the elusive safe, rumored to hold fortunes or secrets untold, lay hidden behind a false panel or within the labyrinthine corridors of this floating palace. With a determined stride, he began his search, leaving only the echo of his footsteps as a clue to his whereabouts. Off to the side, Brand had slipped into the bar, the allure of a strong drink offering a momentary respite from the night's escalating absurdity. At the bar, Brand was quietly nursing his drink when a striking figure emerged from the crowd. A woman with fiery red hair, clad in a rugged cowboy outfit and twin guns holstered at her hips, approached him with a confident swagger. Her eyes danced with mischief as she sidled up close.
"Well now, stranger,"
she drawled in a smoky tone, a teasing smile playing on her lips.
"I couldn't help but notice you look like a man in need of a little excitement."
Brand, always ready for a flirtatious exchange, returned her smile.
And what kind of excitement might that be?
Without missing a beat, she leaned in, her gaze daring.
How about a game of Russian roulette? In the bedroom, of course.
She punctuated her provocative offer by letting the barrel of one of her guns brush teasingly along his groin, a move both bold and startling. Brand's eyes widened, his heart racing with a mix of shock and amusement.
Now, that's one way to raise the stakes.
He managed, his voice laced with a blend of incredulity and charm.
But I'm afraid I'll have to pass on that particular game.
She chuckled, her laughter rich and confident. Then, with a slight flourish, she tilted her head back and declared,
The name's Harriet Barlays, by the way.
Brand's smile faltered for just a moment as he processed her introduction, still reeling from the bizarre encounter.
Harriet Barlays, huh? Well, I suppose one could say you've certainly got a memorable way of making an entrance.
With a final wink, Harriet sauntered away, leaving Brand both bemused and exhilarated by the encounter. Aang ventured to the back of the ship, drawn by a set of cryptic symbols marking a discreet door. His curiosity led him to what appeared to be a restricted area, hidden away from the revelry above. Standing guard before the door was a gray-skinned elf with piercing red eyes, clad entirely in black. His presence exuded an air of authority and rudeness. Without a hint of pleasantry, the elf snapped,
This area is off limits. Scram before you cause trouble.
Aang, undeterred by the curt dismissal, replied with a raised voice,
No one's looking to cause trouble here. Just trying to see what's behind this door.
The elf's eyes narrowed, and in a split second, he drew a revolver, aiming it squarely at Aang.
I said leave. Now.
He growled. The sight of the weapon shattered any remaining defiance in Aang. He slowly backed away, swallowing his retort as he stepped away from the confrontation. Without another word, he turned and returned to join his companions, the tense encounter serving as a sobering reminder of the night's unpredictable perils. As the tension of the night's escapades simmered down to a charged silence, Harriet's clear, commanding voice cut through the murmur of the casino and the ambient clink of glasses. Standing at the bar with a confident stance, she clapped her hands to capture everyone's attention.
Listen up, everyone.
She declared, her tone both playful and authoritative. The chatter died as curious eyes turned toward her. Outside, the riverboat began its steady departure from the dock, its powerful engines and the lurch of the wake signaling that the night was far from over. With the riverboat firmly cutting through the water, the assembled crowd and our motley crew, each harboring their own secrets and misadventures, braced for the next twist in their unfolding tale. The electric atmosphere, mingled with a hint of impending chaos, set the stage for what promised to be an unforgettable journey